Hi, good evening, everyone. I call the Tuesday, February 27th, 2024 Peninsula School District Board of Directors meeting to order. We have two special guests here tonight to speak to us a little bit later, but first they're going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So if I could have Peyton and William come up to the front to lead us, we'll kick it off that way. Is there any discussion prior to the vote on the approval of the agenda? Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
It's been moved by Jennifer and seconded by David to approve the agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried. The agenda is approved. We're going to call Peyton and William back up this evening. So we have special guests. Peyton's from Goodman Middle School and William is from Gig Harbor High School, and they have both served in our state legislature as pages. So we wanted to give them some time to come up and talk about their really awesome experience. So if you guys want to go up together, you can kind of tag team. I'm sure there'll be lots of questions for you. So head over to the podium. And did you guys prepare some remarks, or do you want us, maybe just talk about, just tell us what you did, who you worked for, what you did. So come on up to the microphone. You can adjust it if you need to.
It's perfect. All right. So as was said, my name is William Harper, and I went to the Washington State Capitol, and I was a page there at the Washington State House of Representatives. So there at the Capitol during the week of January 14th, my fellow pages and I had to run errands, run messages on the House floor, hold doors, and go to page school, which was fun. In page school, I learned about the branches of government and how they work, and I wrote a mock bill and learned more about the legislative process. We had a mock hearing, and while my bill did not pass, I learned more about how a bill becomes a law and how to write a successful bill. At the end of the week, me and my partner won the award for our project on the legislative process. I had the opportunity to meet with my sponsor, Representative Michelle Caldier, and talk to her about my time paging and plans for my future. My favorite part was when I was privileged to carry the Washington State flag past the representatives on the House floor to its stand and place it next to the American flag for the Pledge of Allegiance. It was a very cool experience to be down on the House floor, as only representatives and pages are allowed on the floor. I enjoyed paging, and though I do not really want to go into politics, I feel I can be a more successful citizen and voter and understand our government and what it does better. Thank you.
You can hang up here. I'm sure we've got questions for both of you. So after Peyton goes, you guys can stick around.
Hi, I'm Peyton Bleish. I was a page in the House of Representatives down at the Capitol. I was also a page for Representative Caldier. We did a lot of things while we were paging, which, as William said, we ran errands for representatives, we directed lobbyists in the John L. O'Brien building, we delivered messages on the floor of the House chamber, and we got to go to page school and learn how bills become laws, the different branches of government, and all the leaders in Washington. My favorite part of paging was meeting everybody from all over Washington, and I made a lot of friends, and we actually all still have a group chat together, which is really cool. I paged for the week of January 21st, and it was a really cool experience, and I probably will be going into politics because of it. It was a really interesting thing.
Yeah, she's
Thank
a
you.
yes. Yay. Okay, good job. All right. Questions from the board? Comments?
I'll go first. Well, you got two, and you're one in politics, one out of politics, so it's not too bad. You asked me, I was going to ask you what your best memory was, but you answered that. I know oftentimes when I watch the U.S. Congress in action, the pages are sound asleep, they're wiped out. So how many hours a day when you were down there paging did you have to work? Because I know our legislatures down there sometimes work 14, 18 hours a day. How long did you have to work?
We would get to the Capitol around 7, and we were excused at right before 5. So it wasn't too bad, but it was. It was. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
What was the thing you learned at Page School or in any of your time there that was the most surprising to you? You didn't know?
The most surprising was how big of a process it is to pass a bill, because there's so many points along the process where the bill can die. And then there's so many points where it'll get debated and vetoed and approved, and it can get overrun. And it's a very surprising how big of a process it was. So.
Took your question? So, William, I'm curious, you said your team won for the project you did. What was that project? What does that look like?
So we had to make a poster. Well, we didn't have to make a poster. We chose to make a poster on how a bill becomes a law and the steps that it takes to get there. We chose to do ours through the metaphor of a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. Cool. And we used illustrations and captions below to show that.
Did you get to work with all 3 of our legislators in our area, or were you strictly assigned to Representative Caldeer?
Mostly Caldeer. I briefly talked to Spencer Hutchins,
Okay.
but never sat down and talked with
Oh,
him.
got it. Okay. More questions? Yeah, no, I mean, I have a ton of questions. I'm so proud of you for doing it. I think actually, David, you mentioned one in, one out, but I think that's really how most of us feel. You know, you either have the heart for it or you don't, but understanding how it works, I think you said it best. It makes you a more informed citizen and a better informed voter. So when you see things coming your way, you probably understand a little bit more the work that it takes to get there. And I do have one more question. I'm curious. There's a lot of school-related bills that are being discussed this year. Did Representative Caldeer ask for your input on any of those as a student? Yeah? Good. What struck you about schools and the bills related to education this year, if anything?
There was, for the mock committee bills that we were able to write, we got to choose which topic we wanted to write ours about.
Mm-hmm.
And it was surprising that there was a lot of ones about the school science curriculum going around, specifically about updating climate change in the school curriculum books. And so that was one that I saw going around a lot.
Excellent. Well, know that we are incredibly proud of you. It is unbelievable that you would take time out of your schedule and be engaged in such an important process. And I really hope that you share this with your friends. I hope more students go down. It's invaluable. And I think it also is impactful to our lawmakers when they're making decisions that impact your lives and your schools and the work that we do, to see you and hear from you every day. So it was as much a learning for them to be with you as it was for you to be with them. So well done, and thank you for bringing that here. Oh, yes, Lori has one too.
Just a quick comment. I was also going to ask you what was most surprising, so thanks for telling us about that. But I just wanted to say I'm really impressed that you guys had the chance to do this and that you sought out the opportunity. There's a lot of adults that don't understand that process very well, about how bills become laws and how the whole system works. So you're just a step ahead of a lot of people, and good for you for taking the opportunity to learn more about it.
Anything from our students? Do you want to ask any questions or weigh in? Give your kudos? Yeah. Yeah. Please.
So I want to congratulate you. I have 3 children, and our oldest son was a page, and he got to stay down with a host family for the whole week. So he thought that was awesome. And then our second son, he is a lobbyist now because he liked the process so much. So I think my question might be, and I understood that you met friends, because friends are really important in the whole process, right? And so if you could give a recommendation to another middle school, because you both, I would love to know why you did it, right? What compelled you to do that? And then would you recommend that to like a 5th or 6th or 7th, 8th grade student?
Yeah, I would really recommend it. I learned about it first on a field trip in 4th grade to the Capitol, so a long time ago. But I got to meet some pages for the Senate, and that's what made me want to do this. And because I learned so much, and because I got to meet so many friends that I'm still texting and still in contact with, even like almost a month later now, I would say just do it, because it's just a really interesting experience and you learn a lot. So.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend it. It was a ton of fun, and I learned it. I came into contact with the PAGE program because all of my siblings did it, and I kind of went into it and was like, well, I might as well, but I would definitely recommend it to anyone who's considering it.
Excellent. Thanks also to parents and families for supporting this opportunity. I know it's probably a long commute back and forth every day, so we appreciate your support of your own children in that. And if we could get a picture with you guys, if you don't mind coming up here, we'll come around the front. And who's photoing? Oh, Sarah has a question. Sorry, Sarah.
It's not really a question. I just wanted to say it was, your experience there sounds like a really awesome experience, and I'm glad you got to do that.
Thank you.
You are welcome to stay, but you do not have to, so. Okay, we are moving on to item 5, which is more student focus. We're going to have our student school board representative report, so I will let you determine the order that you want to share.
Hello, everybody. I'm Alec Krishnadasan. I'm a senior at Peninsula High School. This is my friend Adam Massery. We have some stuff going on at Peninsula High School we're excited about. Sports, we have spring sports coming up. That's fast pitch, boys and girls golf, track and field, boys soccer, girls tennis, and baseball. So we're really excited about those. First day was yesterday for all those sports. And then for winter sports, we're wrapping up. Wrestling won the state championship, which we're really excited about. Yeah. And Mira Sunnan got first in her weight class, and so did Bailey Parker. So we're really excited for them. And then also Justin Phipps got 8th, and Nehemiah Grandoff got 7th in state. So we're really proud of them, and we're really excited for them. Girls basketball went to state, and they lost first round, but they played their heart out, and they did really well. So they did really well all season. We're really proud of them. Boys swim and dive went to state as well. Zach Ruckel finished 4th in dive, and Jonah Bergeson finished 4th in backstroke and broke the school records that was set in 2010. So that was really cool as well. And then we have Knowledge Bowl Regionals coming up, which I'm personally a part of this Saturday. So we're really excited about that. Yeah.
Where is that?
I'm actually not sure. I just get on the bus and go to the spot, so. Board v students? Ooh, that would be fun. I'll try and set that up. That would be a fun event. Yeah. Some events we got going on, or some that have already passed. We had classified staff appreciation, Black History Month, and Share the Love Month were this month. For Black History Month, we recognize a significant figure in history every week. For the first week of Share the Love Month, we put up hearts with each person's in the school and each staff and student's name on it. And it's currently Love Your Community Month, and we are holding a clothing drive this week to raise clothes, to donate clothes. Yeah. Mr. Peninsula is coming up very soon, March 22nd. That's going to be a fun event. I will be participating in that as well, so I'm excited about that. We have our spring musical coming up. It is Freaky Friday, I figured out. Tickets go on sale in May. So, PHS Got Talent we had for the first time in I think 2 years, and it went really well. We had lots of great talent and lots of attendance. There was lots of kids cheering on all the acts and stuff. So it was great. And then for seniors, there's some important stuff coming up. Well, 189 out of 365 students in the senior class turned in notebooks, scholarship notebooks. So that's really exciting, and lots of money for them to be had. And then Students Distinction just opened up and is due March 15th. And I think there's like 6 different categories that students can apply for to be recognized for their hard work in high school. Students, staff, or any community members can nominate a senior for Students of Distinction. So yeah. Well, you can apply yourself. You can nominate yourself, but if someone else nominates you as well, that also puts you in there. So yeah, and that's it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ethan Schuett, and I'm a senior at Gig Harbor High School. First, we'll talk about our new attendance rules. Gig Harbor High School has recently implemented new attendance rules to cut back on tardiness and truancy. Students who are tardy more than 3 times a week are subject to a lunch detention and potentially other disciplinary actions. Students can now apply for Student of Distinctions, which is a scholarship that honors students in the Peninsula School District for their achievements in a variety of categories such as academic achievement, athletic achievement, music, arts, and drama achievement, along with others. This process includes a form due on March 15th, an interview, and an award dinner for the winners. Now on to sports. Congratulations to our Tides divers for a fantastic performance at their state championship. Max Ferrier led the Tides with a 2nd place finish. Riley Savage placed 6th, and John Kappenlinger rounded out the Tides' efforts by finishing in 12th place. Boys swim and dive finished 6th at state overall. Some notable performances were Grant Hudson becoming state champion in the 200 freestyle and 100 freestyle, breaking the school record in both events. Travis Scott placed 8th in the 200 free and 10th in the 500 freestyle. Additionally, our 400 freestyle relay team placed 5th. Next, our cheer team finished 2nd place at their state competition in the 3A category. Additionally, the Tides cheer team also competed in Anaheim, California at USA Spirit Nationals from February 16th to the 17th. This marks the program's inaugural appearance at the national event. They ended up tying for 8th in the nation for a small crowd leader event out of 14 teams. Sadly, they missed the finals by 1.5 points. Some other awards they got were 3rd in the fight song and 7th in sideline cheer.
I'm Logan Toms. I'm the junior rep for Gig Harbor High School, and continue on sports. We saw wrestling go to their state competition. Specifically, we saw Eleanor Nimrick, Jack Greer, Jonah Edmond, and Liam McDermott compete. We saw Eleanor Nimrick finishing on the podium in 6th place. Also, looking at basketball, they had a pretty massive win against Bainbridge. However, they sadly lost to our Southbound Conference rivals, Timberline. And Taylor Schwab finished first team All-League, and Willow Benici finished second team All-League. Now, boys basketball also competed. However, they sadly lost their first match, falling just short to Lincoln in their winner to state game. Also, Luke Allison was the first team All-League, and Michael Massini got second team. Now, as our Peninsula reps with Alec, and he mentioned that spring sports are starting now, and registration has been due, and so get excited for all the news that's going to come about boys soccer, baseball, fast pitch, along with numerous other sports. Now, for some of our school activities, we saw Knowledge Bowl go to a invitational on the 15th, and they placed first out of the 3A schools and third overall. Looking at our speech and debate, this upcoming weekend, they're going to be competing at the National Qualifying Tournament in the hopes to qualify for the national tournament in Des Moines, Iowa. So that'll be pretty exciting. Looking at our band program, on March 7th, our Gig Harbor High School band will perform their spring concert, and the next day on the 8th, they will be performing at both the feeder middle schools, Kopachuk and Goodman, to kind of showcase the exciting stuff that's going on and help with recruitment. And our drama department is currently working hard to get the Sound of Music play ready for the coming months. And also, just a fun fact, they're working alongside our band program to get live music for it. So that'll be really exciting. So yeah, check it out. I assume there will be sing-along parts. Yeah. Can't really stop it. But yeah, that's what's going on at Gig Harbor.
Good evening, everybody. I hope you are doing well. The new semester started off with a great start. We have a great group of new students that started off, and we're still getting a couple new kids, so that's awesome. On Valentine's Day, our Interact Club had a day of kindness where the day before we filled bags full of candy to pass out to students and staff. And also sold cans of crushed soda on the previous days as a crush for your crush to add funds towards our trip to Guatemala during spring break. And we handed all of that out to students and staff on Valentine's Day. Those of us, speaking of Interact Club, those of us who are going, we're preparing for our service trip to Guatemala during spring break. We are holding fundraisers, making sure our passports and forms are in check, and all that fun stuff. Speaking of our service trip, our Interact Club will be hosting a pancake breakfast on Saturday, March 9th at 8 a.m. at our school. We will be holding raffles with some fabulous prizes and accepting donations to help fund our trip. It's going to be pretty great. We have, and in leadership, we have been starting to brainstorm ideas for our Awesome Garden project. Not a lot of action yet, but we are just starting to be ready for our next steps. We're hoping to have a lot of great progress to be able to showcase what we've been doing by May 14th so that we can show it off at our student showcase night, where we'll be showing off our amazing students' artworks from the art classes and from students who have cool digital and unfortunately, I do not yet have a time for that. However, I will keep an eye out for that information. And on March 29th, we are also hosting our annual blood drive and are looking forward to that as well. It's mostly, I think, students and staff from our schools, and people who are part of our Interact Club. But I think anyone at least at our school, or who have access to coming to our school, have access. I think there's limited spots, so I think people would have to sign up as soon as possible to make sure they have a guaranteed spot. But I'm not sure when the sign-ups start, probably next week or so.
Yeah, I was gonna, so how many, I think the, excuse me, the Interact trip, I think is a really amazing trip that they take every year for Guatemala. And how many students are gonna be going down there?
So we have at least from our school. I'm not sure if there's any from Gig Harbor going, but for us, we have 4 students who are going, myself included. Yeah, we have 4 students, and we're.
And you went last year, right?
No, I did
You
not.
didn't? Okay.
This year will be my first time.
Okay.
One of our students, it will be their second time.
Okay. Is the purpose of the trip to provide fresh water to people in Guatemala? Is that the primary purpose of the trip?
I think that might be part of it. We're going to be doing service work down there, so that might be something we're doing. We'll be working a lot with children down there. I think we're visiting some of the clinics there as well. And we might be helping with building houses, and kind of things like that.
Cool. I'll just say that I continue to be impressed with our school district sports teams. For such a small school district to be so highly ranked, state, I've seen nationally ranked players and rowers and kayakers, and it's amazing. I'm always impressed. And my sons were wrestlers for Gig Harbor High School and usually got beat by Peninsula High School. But to be able to win the MAC Classic is no easy task, and be able to have to win your local tournaments and then go to sub-regionals and regionals, and then to go to the big stressful MAC Classic in the Tacoma Dome. So that's a huge accomplishment for PHS. So thank you.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is comments from the community. When addressing the board, please state your name at the podium and limit your remarks to 3 minutes or less. There will be a timer up here. If you go over time and don't get to say everything that you wanted to say, please know that you can submit your public comments to us in writing, and we will read them in that capacity as well. So first up, we have Chris Doherty.
Hi, good evening. It's a full house, almost here tonight. My name is Chris Doherty. Tonight I am speaking to lift up a number of concerns that Moms for Peace and other parents in the community have raised to the board in recent months, and ask that the board be transparent and purposeful with the response to these items. It has been very encouraging to hear the board place a value on increasing our kids' sense of belonging at school and witness board members reaffirm their dedication to student safety and the gravity of harassment, intimidation, and bullying within our district. Nevertheless, the district's failures to adequately respond to numerous instances of reported harassment and bullying, some of which the board is aware of through other public comments and news media coverage, continue to fall far short of the commitment conveyed during board meetings. But bullying and harassment issues are not the only issues that have not been adequately addressed. During the academic year, we have consistently asked the board to address multiple challenges afflicting our school district. 1, allow educators who are also parents of students in the school district be allowed on parent committees. 2, locate and secure a new venue for larger school events that are not held at Chapel Hill Church, a known anti-LGBTQ entity in our community. 3, conduct periodic student surveys in middle and high schools to gain insight into the challenges confronting our students. 4, respect and endorse students' decisions regarding their chosen pronouns. 5, combat and address racial and homophobic slurs in our schools through education on diversity and cultural understanding, while also backing administrators in disciplining repeat offenders. 6, be transparent with transportation shortages or shortages, and communicate with parents about the status as well as a clear plan to address potential problems. And 7, remain nonpartisan by eliminating religious and political affiliations in the board's professional capacity and address any biases that are informing decision-making processes. We acknowledge the superintendent and the board's policy is to typically refrain from responding to public comments during board meetings. However, it is vital to the board's credibility and ability to earn and maintain community trust that the board is responsive to the issues the community raises. As an example, we appreciate Chuck West for recognizing and speaking to the harassment and bullying concerns raised during the last board meeting. Moving forward, we again request that these issues be addressed publicly and formally by the board, if not during board meetings, through other public means such as emails, newsletters, or on the district website, allowing the community to remain updated on the board and district's progress towards these goals. Thank you.
Next up, we have Diane Nelson.
Hello. Oh, hello. Is this on? Oh, yeah, okay. My name is Diane Nelson, and first I just want to say hello to all of you. I'm so thankful to get to be here with you tonight. When the school boards got changed to Tuesday night, that's a really conflict for me. Whenever I show up, I'm missing somewhere else I'm supposed to be. I had saved Thursday for you guys, but I'm so glad I could be here tonight because I just love to come and share good stories. And I just have a great story I wanted to share because I want you to hear good things that are going on in our district. And you know, I told you at the beginning of the year I was going to volunteer at Artendale instead of reading groups this year doing math, and I've been doing that, and it's wonderful, and I just love doing it, and the kids are so excited. When I come, you know, they want to learn, they want to have help. It's just great. But the story I want to tell you is about reading. On special occasions and days, the teachers let me come in and read stories to the whole class. You know I'm a retired teacher, and just reading to kids is something I love. So every time I come, I choose a Patricia Polacco book. She's my very favorite author for picture book for children. She writes just awesome stories about, you know, compassion and caring and helping kids overcome obstacles that are difficult in their lives, and such great books. So I love reading them, and the kids love hearing them, which is what's so awesome. And when I come in to read and I bring a book, like they come running up to me, but the boys too. And this year my granddaughter's in 4th and 5th split. So I'm reading to 4th and 5th graders, and they are just eating it up and just loving it. So this last time when I came in after getting to read to them one time, one of the boys came up to me and he says, "Oh, I just want you to know, I just love those books that you bring and read to us so much. I got my parents to go online to Amazon and they bought me 4 books by Patricia Polacco, and we are doing family reading time with them." And what a joy, you know, to be able to come in and foster reading with our students and just see kids get so excited about reading good books. So I just want to again say thank you for the way you allow grandparents or parents or, you know, whoever to come in and volunteer in the school, because as a retired teacher, it's so important to me to still be able to make a difference in the lives of kids. So that was my good news story. Thank you.
All right, next up we have Aria Messer.
My printer's broken and I have a visual impairment, so I'm focused. Thank you. My name is Aria Messer, and I'm a parent with 2 children in the Peninsula School District. The last 3 times I spoke at the school board meeting were about equity and inclusion for minority students, especially surrounding bullying and harassment. And tonight will be more of the same, with a proposal that I hope will be carefully considered. It's clear based on the testimony of so many that harassment, intimidation, and bullying is an epidemic in our district. It seems to be a prevalent part of school culture that I'm afraid is becoming a norm. I presented to the board via email a flyer that could be used in schools with a QR code that directly went to the official URL for reporting incidences. And then I was given the name and emails of the principals in the middle and high schools to send the form to, which I did, with the same requests saying, please post this everywhere, in the offices, counselors' offices, health rooms, lunchrooms, hallways, bathrooms, classrooms, and buses. In light of the recent passing of Nex Benedict following homophobic-related violence inside of a public school bathroom, I truly hope that as a district we can all step our game to invite safety and inclusion in our schools. Taking it a step further, an amazing friend of mine recently shared a process that is used in her field of work called restorative justice. To quote her, restorative justice is a way of resolving conflict that fosters perspective sharing and learning. There are consequences to actions, and restorative justice is not eliminating that. It just believes that if punishment is our only solution, we will miss opportunities to learn and grow. My friend printed this off for me because I don't have my printer working, and I can send this to you, but the process is centered around respect, dignity, and mutual concern by creating a space for repairing harm that's done, nurturing healthy dialogue and relationship, and creating an equitable and just environment for learning. It all dials down to the idea that people are relational and worthy of understanding. Another friend who teaches in a neighboring district has shared that their school uses the restorative justice process with helpful and productive results. There are, of course, extreme cases where the damage done will cause more pain if a victim faces their abuser in this proposed process. However, if given a choice, I believe in most instances, if this were an option, it would be more successful with dealing with HIB cases, and it would be an opportunity to help make the culture shift that our schools desperately need. Please consider researching and implementing a restorative justice process in the Peninsula School District across all the schools so that we can invite more empathy, compassion, kindness, and growth in our kids and students. Thank you for listening.
Next up, we have Hugh Pratt.
I'm Dr. Hugh Pratt. I'm an anesthesiologist. And first of all, I just want to commend the students for doing a blood drive. I'm a physician that administers the blood that you donate, so thank you for helping us save lives. I also want to express my envy of the two pages that were here because their work hours are a lot better than mine. My main psychological intervention is general anesthesia, so I feel like a student preaching to the professor here. And I actually used to be, believe it or not, a professor of finance, but that's another long story. As a college professor, we didn't have to deal with bullying. As a student, when I was a child, I remember being a victim of bullying quite often. My children recently suffered physical, psychological, and cyberbullying episodes that I have to say, Ms. Vice Principal Musgrove at Goodman Middle School did an excellent job of addressing. I thought, well, that's it. Everything else is wonderful in the school district. And then I saw the story on KIRO TV about the bullying that took place here in Gig Harbor, and where there was a video of a child being beaten by an abuser on a school bus. You cannot be a human being and see that and not be outraged. This is unacceptable. It can't go on. It's uncivilized for anyone to feel like this is something that does not need to be addressed. Now I have to say, Principal Roebuck helped address this issue with me and told me that there was information that I didn't know about and that the issue had actually been addressed more than what was reported on the KIRO story. And I can certainly believe that. I am disturbed by the reports I'm hearing from these two ladies here today to find out that my experience with my children is not a novel event in this district. And this it personally has elevated this issue dramatically in my mind as something that must be addressed. This is not something we can compromise on. The harm to the children is real. It's long-term. It affects people into adulthood. And it's not just the victims. The abusers are also victims in this process because they suffer harm throughout childhood and into adulthood, frequently leading to criminal behavior and self-harm and chemical abuse. This is real stuff. I see this in my job. I'm the one that has to take care of people who have made mistakes in life and need surgical interventions to deal with it. This is real life and death stuff.
Thank you, Mr. Pratt. Your time has expired. If you have further comments, please.
That's all I have to say, but thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. And last up, we have Carol Rivera.
Okay, you can start my time. Hi, I'm Carol Rivera. I am the Peninsula Education Association president. I represent the teachers and educators in our district. I speak regularly to you just to give you updates on different things, but I did want to make sure that I acknowledge the other speakers and their concern for the safety and well-being of their children. We share that same desire to make sure that we address those needs and are taking proactive ways to do that. I think that, again, kind of tying it to the ability of our students here to share their opinions and give their voice. This afternoon, the last bargain that we did, we created 3 leadership positions on our building leadership teams. One of them is our wellness representatives who are doing the work around that. The other one is our MTSS representatives who are working for interventions both academically and behaviorally. And the third piece was our equity, diversity, and inclusion representatives. And so that group gathered today with the focus to look at the ways that we can engage student voice and not just hear it, but also find ways for them to lead and be involved in that. I think one of the takeaways from today's training was just that we need to listen to everyone, right, and their perspectives and value those and validate those so that we can get to a place where we all can move forward together. So that is my hope. It is directly tied to the other 2 groups, which will be meeting tomorrow here, receiving training from a local vendor. And so that piece is to help support our climate and culture, the well-being of our staff, and the well-being of our students. It all starts with one individual, one classroom, one person at a time, taking control of all of those things, our buses, our classrooms. The school climate and culture really takes all of us, our families, our students, our community, and we just want to reaffirm that our teachers are invested in that. So I know that we've extended that opportunity to the board if they want to join us or pop in during that time. The piece why I bring that up is also we will be including students from our high schools. So the Teacher Academy students will be attending, and they represent both Peninsula High School and Gig Harbor High School. And Henderson Bay is bringing members of their ASB that will be in office next year. So our hope is just by engaging our youth and our students that we can listen to their experience and how what we do in our classroom can both benefit the educator well-being so they are prepared to deal with these very real issues that we see every day. So thank you for your time.
Okay, that concludes our comments from the community this evening, so we will move on to item 7, which is the consent agenda. Is there any discussion prior to the vote? Yes.
Just wanted to say how much I appreciate the attention that has been given to filling out the travel request forms with, I'm looking at Dan because you signed several of these. It's very easy to read now, and I think clearer to the community where the funds are coming from and how it's all allocated. So thank you.
Yeah, great news. Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It has been moved by Lori and seconded by Chuck to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Consent agenda is approved. Item 8, this evening, these are our reports. We have got our Chief Financial Officer, Ashley Murphy, here. She's actually going to be presenting both of the reports. The first one will be our monthly budget update, followed by our employee support services update. Welcome back, Ashley.
Okay. Again, using my laptop up here makes it easier so I can actually see. My eyes seem to be aging. Okay, so we'll get started. Remember at my last report here just over a month ago, I said January is that key time frame because we have that apportionment true up. But we'd put that money aside, so if enrollment didn't roll in, we would be able to sort of roll with it, and you're going to be able to see that as I go through our basically the closing of our books for January 31st, 2024. When we're looking at revenues, the first thing that we're looking at are those half semicircles up there. The key one there, you're going to start seeing the state resources, so that blue semicircle, you're going to start seeing a deficit there. You're going to see a gap between our projected year-to-date and our actual year-to-date, and that's due to that $2.9 million recovery that the state is taking back due to the decreased enrollment. So right now, last month we showed that we were well over what was anticipated. Now we're currently about 0.6% under, and as the state, they recoup that money over the course of basically January through the end of the fiscal year being August 31st. As they recoup that money, you're going to see that that spread increase. Again, federal resources were well above where we were projected. That's primarily due to increased federal revenues for food service, particular to Evergreen and Vaughan, and the free meal programs that both of those schools are operating currently. And we'll go on to expenditures. So for expenditures, this is one of those areas where I told you guys that semicircle, we were looking, that green one, we were looking a little bit high, but I had said that with that reduction, we would still be within our goal area. We are 5.76. That is accounting for the full reduction of that $2.9 million. It still puts us between 4 and 6%. So, and you're going to see in the next slide how spot on we are as far as actual budget goes. So aside from that, we're still trending where we would expect in all of our other areas for expenditures at this point. Now, this slide, that dark blue line, is our trend line for this year. So obviously we have actuals through January 31st. And so then from January through the end of the year, that's based upon trends. That green triangle there on the very far right-hand side, that's where we've budgeted to end the year. Okay, so we budgeted to end right there. Look where that blue line is. Spot on exactly where we had budgeted to end. So that's what I'm going to continue to follow. So if we have unexpected expenses come up, that's where I start looking, okay, so it's unexpected, it's not in the budget, where do we pull from so that we can maintain and keep our blue line hitting that green triangle? That is the goal in very simplistic terms. So we've been following that. Ultimately, we knew that we were going to dip below the trend lines of the 3 prior years, given what we needed to do last year as far as the right sizing. So that is to be expected. The main goal was just we're going to hit the green triangle, and so far we're trending to do so. Okay, this gets into a little bit more detail regarding current finances and where we are versus where we anticipated to be. You can see that under the state general purpose, we're currently trending at about a $3.6 million deficit. Obviously, we have the $2.9 million just general apportionment deficit due to reduced enrollment, but what this is also taking into account is other areas where our state and our state funding hasn't met the past trends. And so I continue to look at that to determine where we're seeing those variances with all of those numbers. So ultimately, that's our largest deficit on that side, is going to be that apportionment reduction. And then you can see below that where the expenditures are lined. Obviously, red is unfavorable. So if we're red, we're technically over. And if we're black, we're under where we expect it to be. This one, I like just throwing this one in there because this is only looking at our basic ed, or what we call our O1 expenses. So these are the areas that are more like our building-based spending. And so it's nice to be able to track where we're under, where we're over, and determine what our net variance number is. So our net variance number in this situation is actually positive, but it's not significantly positive. You don't want to see the dollars not being used on this year's students. So I wouldn't want to see $1 million+ number there. Seeing 130,000, that lets me know that we're going to end the year probably really close to zero. So that's a good place to be at for this point in the school year where we're at. I know I breezed through that, but that's our finances as of January 31st. Questions, comments?
Yeah, can you, a couple of years ago, we started asking probing questions of our former CFO about pending fiscal cliff based off of COVID and what's going to happen after COVID and so forth, which allowed us, unlike many districts in the state, to get ahead of our budget planning, and you've done a fantastic job taking that on. What are you seeing with some of the bills that are coming out or not coming out of Olympia around special ed funding, transportation funding, loss of the experience factor? How do you, if you're looking ahead to our next school year, how do you see current impacts in Olympia affecting us in next year's budget?
Perfect. That's a great question. So one of the areas that I was hopeful but reserved was in regards to that experience factor bill. This is a bill that has been, it was looked at last year and revised, and then it hit legislature again this year, but in a revised format. So basically what they were ending up doing is turning around and taking this experience factor. It's a 4% inflationary factor on teacher payroll that came into play post McCleary. So we're talking 2017, in order to offset compensation and the loss of what's called a mixed factor ratio for teacher pay. So what they did is they took this and said districts that have a lot of experienced staff. So they have staff that have taught in the industry 16+ years. We're going to go ahead and give this additional 4% because we know that the districts are going to have to pay these staff more in order to retain them. But then, of course, the legislature last year turned around and said, okay, well, we're going to rebase this experience factor, all of these districts that were receiving the experience factor, we're going to rebase their total years of experience during a peak pandemic year. So they took a peak pandemic year and looked at our overall experience, and then turned around and said, well, Peninsula School District, you no longer have that level of experienced staff. We're going to take that 4% away from you. Our board was really, really, really good about hitting the hill and saying you can't just take 4% away. For this district, that equates to just under $4 million. And this was, as some of you can recall, last year being in a RIF situation, $4 million loss all at once is a huge loss going into this year. So the board, superintendent, were successful in getting a step down package basically put into this bill, meaning we only lost 2% going into this year. We're going to lose another 2% going into next year if nothing had changed. That 2% equated to approximately $1.8 million this year that we did lose. So we truly did lose that $1.8 million. Now that $1.8 million loss is a loss in addition to what you're seeing as far as that $2.9 million apportionment loss. So there was some, initially some positive legway in getting either a true rebase, as in they look at our experience right now because we are over the average years of experience now if they actually were to look at last year's data. So either have them look at last year's data or turn around and allow another step down, like a 1%. So next year, instead of losing another $1.8 to $2 million, we'd lose $900,000 or $1 million. They've opted now not to do that, so the bill died. So now we already know that we're facing another $1.8 million revenue loss for the experience factor going into next year. Where we don't know what this is going to look like is in regards to their rebase structure and how long we will have lost it before we earn it back. So because I tend to approach this in a more conservative nature, I'm saying it's gone, and it's gone for the next 4 years. Now, if something changes and they reintroduce a bill at some point between now and the next 4 years, and we do get something back from that, awesome. But when I'm budgeting and I'm looking at the figures, I'm saying that $4 million is out the door. There was also potential for them to increase MSOCs, or material supplies and operating costs. And so that's the dollars that you receive to keep the lights on, keep insurance paid, keep curriculum or textbooks, at least partially paid textbooks, in kids' hands, the rest of it coming from levy, of course. So originally there was these lofty goals of we're going to increase MSOCs by a fairly significant amount. That did not end up occurring. And as far as I know, that's pretty much died too. So we're not getting any money on the MSOC side either. So then there was the push for SPED, like they're going to increase SPED allocation or transportation allocations in regards to SPED. None of this is going to have a significant impact on our district, even with sort of the lofty changes that they had made last year in SPED with the legislative process. It didn't equate to any type of material impact to this district. Although, yes, we did have a positive financial gain, approximately $600,000, but it's not going to equate to making up the difference of what we've already lost. So as of right now, when I'm looking forward and looking at our current legislative session, the ending of that legislative session, I'm not seeing any significant positive inflows coming from this legislative process. So then what I do and what my team does is we live within our means. We just plan that we're not going to get it, and we build our budgets, our department level budgets, our building level budgets, and our district budget based upon the fact that we've lost these dollars. They're out the door. We're not getting them, and we're going to build based upon that. Then, if for whatever reason something does change and we do receive something, it's easier to spend the money once you get it than it is to find ways to take it away once you've technically already spent it. So that's what we're doing right now. I know that's a long-winded explanation, but for anyone who hasn't heard or been part of this process either last year or this year in regards to these larger bills, I just wanted them to have the historical context. So there's nothing big. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, any other questions? I can spend, 5 minutes going way too in deep. You guys have to just think school finance is so interesting.
Make a comment?
Yeah,
May I
go for it.
I think that what I would want students to know and understand is that if we ran the data right now, we would be, 86.9% of all of our staff have a master's
Yes.
or higher?
Yep.
So we are like the highest senior, we're talking certificated staff, okay, teachers. So if they ran the data right now, but that's not how state funds like a couple years ago, right? And you remember where we were a couple years ago. We were 3 feet away. We had more staff because we needed to have more staff because our classes had to be changed. And so that's an important aspect, I think, when you're listening to a CFO talk about dollars, is that real decisions impact, not having $4 million that we had 2 years ago is a big impact. So I think that's just important. I think those of you that want to be CFOs, I know there's a couple of you sitting there, but that's a loss with the same amount of kids, right? And the same amount of teachers, so.
And in all reality, what it comes down to is, so a school district is a business, but we are in the business of educating kids. And so we need to make sure that when we're making those decisions in alignment with our strategic plan, because if we're hitting our strategic plan objectives, then we are serving kids, that we need to ensure that we are being very thoughtful in regards to the deployment of our assets, whether or not that's staff or finances. If we are truly abiding by what's in our strategic plan, we'll be fine. But we do have to roll with, basically roll with the punches as things come down to us, because we can advocate, and we do, and the board does a great job at it. But we are one voice amongst many. And again, we're not a super large district, and so they tend to sway more towards the larger districts and their voice. And they have different needs than what we do.
Is it okay if I ask like a clarifying question?
Yes, please do.
So you keep saying, you're like focusing on going by our means. What generally happens with like surprise surplus revenue, or is that generally with specific grants for specific?
That is a great question. So most people would be like, surprise surplus revenue, what is that? But I think COVID taught us what that was, because here we got hit with a pandemic and the Fed started flooding school districts with a bunch of resources. Now, they didn't flood Peninsula School District with the same volume of resources that they gave to other districts, but still we got some. So ultimately, when we get these revenues in, it's sort of like what you're actually talking about, in the sense that sometimes when these revenues come in and we weren't necessarily anticipating them, they're tied to something or earmarked. And so they'll have the state will come in and say, hey, we're going to give you additional money for counseling staff. Normally, through the prototypical funding formula, even if they give the money to fund counselor type positions, we're still free to do with that money what we will. Like if we're paying counselors out of levy and we want to utilize this money to offset some classroom teachers and bring down class size, we would be allowed to. What the legislature has started doing, though, is, hey, we're going to pony up some dollars and give you these funds, but you're only able to do this one thing with it. The problem is that when they start earmarking all of those pieces, we start getting holes that we can't fill because we don't have any funding then left to cover that specific area. And that's when districts go to their local levy in order to backfill. But this district is capped for their levy at a per pupil amount, and so we don't necessarily have the same means of being able to do that. So it does happen that we get revenues that we wouldn't have necessarily anticipated, normally through competitive grants, and then we're like, yes, awesome, we won, right? But then in those situations, they are earmarked and tied to specific funding protocols.
Can I say something on that too? If we did get some extra money, we need to save it, right? Because further down the road, we're going to have unexpected costs. If we have an economic downturn or something like that, we need money in reserves. And so she's heard this from me before. Our reserves are not adequate to cover an economic downturn. If people can't pay their property taxes, we don't get the money, and the teachers don't get paid. And we can't have that. We have to keep this running through that. So we have to have stability. So if there is some extra money, she hears it, let's put it away. If we don't have to spend it, let's make sure we cover ourselves. So
yeah.
Okay. Ashley, would an example of that, or maybe parallel situation, be with the with Evergreen and Vaughn, with the money from that we're getting with that food program, and maybe how now that is being used?
Yes, that is a perfect example. So part of the legislative session last year included dropping the poverty percentages that a building needs to be at in order to qualify for free meals for all. And so they pass this bill, but we don't know yet if it will impact us, because we have to get our final poverty percentages, and there's some work that needs to be done at the state level before they say, okay, yes, this school and this school are going to qualify. So we found out this summer, but late summer, the budget has already been drafted by that point, and then we find out, hey, we have these two schools that are going to qualify. So now you're seeing, even through our financial trends, that we do have this increased federal revenue coming in for basically for the meals being served, but it's tied. You can only use it in the food service program, which most people would be like, awesome, there's plenty of costs, use it in the food service program. But we are lucky, and I'm very thankful that we contract with Sodexo. When we contract with Sodexo, we're locked into a term, into a fixed price. So we end up basically retaining more of that percentage than other districts that had the employee, that they were their own employees and they're subject to the SEB costs and all of that. Like, it's just costlier to have the employees on our own payroll. So what that then does is it requires us to set it aside even in our accounting records. Like, it is literally a restricted fund and can only be utilized on for food service programs, whether or not that's actual meals being provided or an oven goes out, the dishwasher goes out, you need some freezer repairs. Last year, as part of the surplus of funds, we purchased a box truck with a lift. And so some of our food service staff can turn around and take food from one location to another, but you have to go through an approval process with OSPI. So it's not even like we can take those restricted funds and just go buy the box truck. You have to go back to OSPI and you have to say, please, can I buy a box truck? And then they come back to you and say, sure, you may buy a box truck. But that's all takes time. So it's very, very important, though, to be very aware of what we call those are continuing compliance requirements, because the last thing you want to do is get the surplus of funds, use it somewhere where you shouldn't have used it. Then they come in and audit and say, well, you used these federal funds in this program you weren't supposed to, and now you have to repay everything back. They're sticklers for that. But yeah, perfect example. Okay, so do we go directly into ESS? Or do you want me to go sit down? Nope, all that is that's the data that's in this. It just doesn't have to be approved, but I'm required by law to provide it to you. So you can see that I didn't make this stuff up. Okay. Okay, so I'm not gonna put a PowerPoint presentation up here or anything like that. This is just more of an update of where Employee Support Services, the department, is currently. And for those that are not aware, in Peninsula School District, the Employee Support Services Department is technically it's a new department as of this year. The Employee Support Services Department is actually a combination of what was our HR, our Human Resources Department, and our Payroll Department. So human resources and payroll, they're two sides of the exact same process. We bring the employees in, we hire them, we get them onboarded, they work, we pay them. And so one of the things that districts across the state are finding are that when we've separated these two departments and we have them operating and functioning as two completely separate departments, there's breakdowns. There's breakdowns in communication, timeliness of work completion, all of those pieces. So what we did this last summer is we decided to reorganize and create the Employee Support Service Department, and we combined payroll and HR. So we're about 6 months into our new life as a single department in Employee Support Services, and we are already seeing significant improvements. Last year at the beginning of the year, as we'd have needs to post and hire, the process just to get something posted could have taken in excess of 2 weeks just to go through everything. Now we can get a request. We've created an electronic process for posting of positions. So we can get an electronic request to post a position and we can have it posted within the same day, sometimes within even a few hours. And we're doing all of this with less staff. Because the intent wasn't to have less staff, but attrition works in mysterious ways, and when you have efficient processes and you can do more with less people, the financially conservative and mindful decision would be to just do the work then with the people that you have. There's no need for increased staffing. So we've been able to do that. One of the things that the team is currently going through is I voluntarily called SAO, the state auditor's office, and I said, please send us an auditor who is going to be able to work with our team on lean. So lean technically isn't an acronym, but lean is a process for determining efficiencies in workflows. It originated in the manufacturing industry. When I worked for the state, I was heavily involved in lean processes, both at the state auditor's office and Department of Revenue. I found out the state auditor's office was willing and able to provide free lean training within municipalities, so just public entities. And they come in and they have an individual who was not an auditor who they trained to do lean. This is an individual who her entire career has been lean. She's worked for manufacturing companies, and that's where the bulk of her work experience came from. So she has come in and she is looking through our processes in Employee Support Services Department. She's not looking at them as an auditor. She brings our team in, and we go through the process of identifying every step in a process. Then we tie those steps back to rules, laws, legal compliance, policy, procedure, local, state, federal laws. And things that do not fall within those arenas, why? Why do we have that step then if there's nothing stating that we need to have that step? Because one of the things that I was finding is all of our processes are paper, and you sign your name, then you scan it, then you email it to this person who prints it and then signs it and then scans it and then uploads it and emails it back to the other person. It's taking too long. So we brought the team together, and now they're leaning their processes, which is nice because then we get the buy-in from the staff. They're part of the solution. And so we're in day 2 of our first lean project, and our lean mentor who's been guiding us has had nothing but extremely positive feedback on the work that the team has been doing, and I've gotten super positive feedback from the team as well, and just pure excitement to do this with other projects, like other processes, you know, across the board, and ultimately that's the goal. Because as we create these more efficient processes, our customer service to our staff, to the community improves significantly. We don't want staff applying for positions and waiting, you know, a month, 2 months, 6 weeks to find out if they got an interview. Then, you know, they have to wait a few weeks for an interview. Then it's a significant amount of time to find out whether or not they got the position. If we lean this, then we won't lose out on the candidates that they were competitive. They found other employment. So that's the process that we're working through currently, and things have been going really positively there. Aside from that, March starts the time frame, the heavy time frame of budget, primarily through staffing, because as we know, staffing takes up in this district just over 80%, like 80.2%, because we did the work necessary to bring it down to 80. And so we're starting our preliminary work on staffing allocations in order to start driving that piece of the budget, because in order to determine what department budgets are going to look like, we first need to know the people side. And so we're working through that, and by the people or the staffing side, we're talking about the costs associated with what our needs are going to be next year for our staff. So what are our contractual requirements, our bargain requirements, who's moving up on the salary schedule, who obtained another degree, those type of things. There's all of those pieces that we need to look into, as well as certifications for our teaching staff. Did the individuals that were on conditional cert get the required certificates or testing that they needed in order to get their regular cert, those type of pieces. So we're going through all of that process right now, in the hopes that by the time April rolls around, the staffing piece then is solidified, and we start then with department level budgets and driving that out. So that's sort of where we are with Employee Support Services as of right now. Questions?
The finance guy, yeah. When I was a defense contractor, we spent a lot of time around Six Sigma.
Yes.
For ISO, so various ISO certifications, black belt, Six Sigma, green belt. Does it benefit the school district through the auditor's office if the school was to pursue Six Sigma kind of lean efficiencies? when you talk about lean, are we talking about Six Sigma kind of lean?
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Yeah, we are, and it would benefit the district. It's something that Chris Hagel and I have been talking about because he has an interest in doing some of this work within his departments as well. And ultimately, our goal is to sort of spread this across the operational structures of the school district, because if we can get everyone in and operating with that type of Lean or Six Sigma mindset, we're going to be better off at the end of the day. Like you just truly, you spend less for one, but it's not about having less people. It's about having processes that allow true customer service to be the forefront of what we are doing, especially when you're not in a manufacturing industry. So it would, and we have been looking into that, because it would be hugely beneficial if we did have someone that was fully trained, even Greenbelt trained, which is sort of funny to discuss when you're talking lean. But right now we're taking it more of a mindset of train the trainer. So she's in, I have a core group, there's 7 of us working through this. I've been through multiple lean projects. But I don't want the staff to hear it from me. I want the staff to hear it from someone who does it on day to day, so that we just have simply more buy-in. And then from there, we're going to utilize this project to stair-step other projects in other operational departments.
Yeah, so if the school district was to tag someone to be the Six Sigma person, would that person most likely fall under Chris's staff?
We might have to fight over it because I may want it, but
it's quite a process. Okay.
But we'll see. But yeah, no, ultimately we just need to find, you don't need multiple people. It would be ideal to have one individual, then we're not having to call on the auditors to come in.
All right, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Is this solely for internal processes, or you think about any, with this, can this apply to some more of our public-facing processes too?
Absolutely. It absolutely can.
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah, they're in doing this area only because I brought this one forward because I knew it would be a simplistic first step, and the stakeholders were people I was responsible for. Therefore, I could start with that group and then build out from there. But yes, we can do it in a multitude of different areas.
And free for all areas.
Yeah, free. I like free too.
I mean, we're paying them for audits.
I know.
So
Yes, we are.
not really free.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the nice things about this is even if the auditors were to come in and the staff are talking about, hey, we do this step, and, the auditor's like, what about XYZ step, this legal compliance step, and the staff were to look like deer in the headlights being like, we have no idea what you're talking about, the state can't do anything with it. Like, they're not there to find us being deficient in something.
Mm-hmm.
They're there to help us create processes to create those efficiencies and make sure that we're good to go in the future. So it is hugely helpful.
Is it a new service they're offering? Or have they been-
So apparently they've been offering it for the last 10 years, but we're only the second school district that they've worked with, mostly because there's a fear of reaching out to them.
Right, to invite them in.
Mm-hmm. I actually found out because they were working with the city of Gig Harbor, and Chris had gone to a meeting in which they were talking about this, and I was like, no way. So I got on, and I looked, and I saw that they were offering this, and I signed us up the same day.
Brilliant. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments? How about
Nope.
students? Any questions about getting lean in your processes? It's a good thing.
Oh, yeah.
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 Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, that concludes our reports for this evening. We have no old business to discuss. Under new business, we have a couple of resolutions to approve. Item 10.1 is the approval of Resolution 2401, acceptance of building commissioning report for Evergreen Elementary School project. Is there any discussion prior to the vote? Is there a motion to approve item 10.1?
I move that we approve item 10.1, approval of resolution 24-1.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved by David and seconded by Chuck to approve Resolution 2401. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried. Item 10.1, the approval of Resolution 2401 has been approved. Item 10.2 is the approval of Resolution 2402, establishing the Long Range Facilities Advisory Board. I'm looking for Patrick. There he is. Is there any discussion prior to the vote?
Only to say I'm very happy to see this resolution.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a long time coming. It's
Thank you,
exciting.
Patrick.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick.
Who's back there?
Is he back there?
Yeah, he's back there hiding. Is there a motion to approve item 10.2?
I move to approve item 10.2.
It has been moved by Jennifer and seconded by Lori to approve Resolution 2402, establishing the Long Range Facilities Advisory Board. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Item 10.2, approval of Resolution 2402 has been approved. Okay, I think moving on to item 11, the superintendent's report. I believe Superintendent Barr, you have some discussion with staff members or.
Yeah, I do. Thank you. Thank you. For my report this evening, we will be having two discussions. The first one, I'd like to actually invite the high school staff up. Recently, there was some information about a contract for Fishbowl, and I know that the board had requested to have some questions. I know that they had some questions, and so I appreciate our high school administration and our high school staff being here tonight. Thank you all for waiting so long. It was good. You got a good fiscal report there.
It's getting longer. It's not that bad, right?
Well, we just might. So, thank you, Principal Benoit and Suter.
Yep.
Yes. It's a long night. It's not like I don't know your name. So would you just start us off with some conversation about how and why and all of that? Thank you.
Yeah, so I also just want to introduce our two head coaches. We have Ross Filkins from Peninsula High School and Darren Reeves from Gig Harbor High School. And part of the reason why you're seeing all of us here is because what you're seeing is a mutual decision, as well as our athletic director, Blair Sook, at Gig Harbor High School. So it was kind of let you know that we're united front and give you a little bit of context for where we are and why we are where we are. So much like the budget, we start looking at athletics much earlier than most people would think, right? Sort of like planning a wedding. You do it much in advance so that you can make the best decisions, et cetera. And so post Fishbowl this year and post our football season, we began discussing what it would look like for the following year for our league. And then the whole league realignment happened, and we went into two divisions, and that discussion took place, and that left us with, well, what's going to happen with Fishbowl? And that was a huge conversation that was happening both at our campuses, with our students, within our community, and we knew it was super important that we address and make sure that we upheld this long-standing tradition. In discussion with our superintendent, it was expressed that it was extremely important that we honor this tradition, that we continue with it, regardless of where we landed in terms of our league. And so we landed in two divisions in one league, and that left us with an opportunity preseason to schedule our Fishbowl game. So once we had that under wraps, we had to start discussing the venue. And that's where we discussed where we have been and where we are going. And in the midst of that conversation, we began looking at how Fishbowl has grown and some of the logistical challenges that we've faced along the way. And started examining other areas where we might be able to find a facility that better met our needs in light of where we are right now. And so what you have in front of you is a list of things that kind of drove our decision-making process. And Mike and I are going to kind of share both of this kind of talking points as we go through. And our coaches are here to answer any questions you might have as well. But we realize that this is a big change. And all I can say is any decision is not made lightly. We have talked at length about this. We understand the tradition that this holds for the community, the deep roots that Fishbowl holds for our community, and we wanted to honor that in a way that would allow us to continue in the best possible way to have this crosstown competition and friendly rivalry. So, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'll just say, we all know it's a big event. And I know I look really young, but I've been here for a little while. And this community has grown so much. The event has maintained its popularity, and our facility, not just logistics, but safety. We have some very real challenges when we try to put this event on. So we looked at, okay, what do you do? We can't keep doing what we're doing and say that we're, without kind of liability. It just doesn't feel safe. And so we looked at, what would you do if you hosted at Roy Anderson, and what would it take to host a safe event? And you're looking at things like restricting access and limiting the number of people that can be there probably, and trying to find some solutions to our parking and access challenges. And then we started thinking, what would be an alternative site, and what are some other solutions that are close by? And so we started really looking at some of these other stadiums, and the one we've considered is actually in our league, the new league alignment now. It's also approved by the WIAA to host state events. So it's been the host of the state football championship before. It's routinely, I think, the host of the track and field state championship. It's a very well-equipped facility that I'm going to show you some pictures of if Tanya can hook it up there. Microphone. Thank you. Okay, so first thing you notice is it doesn't matter if it rains or not because there's cover on both sides. There's a fence going around the track all the way on the outside, which will prevent the approach of everybody that you have on the field that we have. Why don't you go a couple more slides, Tanya, and just flip through, and I'll tell you where to stop. That's the visitor side. The one before was the home side. These are the entry gates, and there's an entry gate on both sides. There's concessions on both sides. There's locker rooms on both sides. There's press boxes or coaching boxes for both teams that are separate. And why don't you go ahead and put up the side-by-side one? I think it's one of the last slides. There's one more. Yeah, so this is Mount Tahoma, and you can just visually see the parking, the difference in the parking. And this is Peninsula High School. If you look closely, you see the difference in space on the field, parking, there's more access points here. So there were a lot of things that were very, very appealing about being able to host an event where you don't have to worry if you can fit your community in it or not safely. And part of the arrangement is they have a fully staffed group that supports events that come in.
Yeah. So I have to echo what Mike said about safety and security. We had a player on the field that we couldn't get access to, and it was a moment where you're hit with the reality of, if you don't have what you need at the time, what could go terribly wrong. And so this allows us to have the access. It also allows us to have a visiting side, which, because we don't have a visitor side really when we're playing fishbowl, one group is standing really while the other group is sitting, or they stand too, but or covered. And it also allows us to invite the whole community. So when we talked about limiting seats, we decided, well, what was that going to look like? Would it look like lottery? Would it only be players' families? You start to have to kind of distinguish who's that going to be and what's that going to look like as well. So it holds quite a bit more. You can see capacity is to seat 5,000 people at Mount Tahoma versus Roy Anderson. In terms of costs, we anticipate the costs are actually going to be lower. It costs us a lot of money to rent equipment, and I'm sure Ross can talk more to this about the amount of money that we spend, and Patrick as well, when it comes to the cost of renting equipment to run the fishbowl at Roy Anderson, and the cost is much lower. And then, we're playing at a WIAA, playoff field that we wouldn't be new to us, which also gives us that opportunity as well. So, do you want to speak to that, Mike, more?
I think you covered it. But yeah, just, and I don't know if there'll be questions coming up on why is the game on a Saturday, and I think part of that might be availability of the place, but we thought there was some real appeal to doing it on Saturday as opposed to a Friday night and allowing people more time and space in their schedule to get there and to attend the game. It's also, when you talk to football coaches during the playoff season, they play a lot of afternoon games. They play games at that time, so it gives them a little exposure to playing at that time of day. Some of the other safety challenges that we have at that game might be addressed by having an earlier start time also for us. So, and we're looking for how do we address some issues that might be, how do I get there, for some students maybe, because it's a little, Mount Tahoma sounds like it's far away, but it's not very far across the bridge. But we've already begun conversations about having router buses or doing some other things that would allow maybe not just students, but maybe even community members to hop on a bus and take a bus over to Mount Tahoma. We know there's a lot of details that would still need to be worked out in this plan, but we have a good starting point. I don't know if there's anything specifically that you guys would want to say, just speaking to coaching a game, at Roy Anderson that is that well attended as opposed to a different kind of stadium. Is there anything you guys would add to that?
So I think for me, Fishbowl is an amazing event. The crowd is a lot. Growing up in Texas, I've grown up with Texas stadiums and get it, and it's a different environment that the kids will get to experience when you start stacking people up, the sound that comes from it, the ability to have our own space. For us, we share locker rooms with our volleyball team. Our space is tight over there, and just to be able to have our own space to where we have our set time. It's on Saturday. It's going to be our locker room, and the ability to have our kids experience something like that. I think we live in a great community. Both schools are amazing. Both student sections are amazing. They're going to show up whenever we play it, wherever it's at. And to see it filled up like that, I think would be a once-in-a-lifetime experience for our kids. Because if you are the visiting team, it's like the crowd is with you on the sideline. And it's a weird feeling because they're not really up. They're like on your back. And getting to the locker rooms are crazy, trying to go through 7 lanes of people stacked on the track, and just being able to enter your locker room from the 50-yard line safely with not any issues or worry about who's coming or who's running through while you're trying to run through, just to protect our kids and just give our kids the best opportunity to enjoy the moment, which they should be able to.
I would just echo what Darren said. I think those are all spot on comments. And I would also say, just from a historical perspective from the community, it's not without precedent. We have had fish bowls at the Tacoma Dome, at Bremerton High School, and at Stadium High School. And those have been great events for our community. And I think they've gone very well, being off-site. And I think probably the only real issue that we ever had was at Stadium, we just didn't have enough ticket sellers, and the line was so long. And talking to people from Tacoma, Stadium Bowl, the only time that it had been quite to that capacity was when Elvis played there. So, I think that this gives us a good opportunity for us to go out and celebrate our community as well.
I think Ross, one more. Ross said, you would know this better than me, but at one time you said that to me that the Fish Bowl is the most well-attended rivalry game in the state of Washington outside of the Apple Cup, or close to. And so this just increases our capacity. And the difference that Patrick, pipe in if I miss anything, but I was checking with Patrick today. Mount Tahoma seats 5,000. Roy Anderson seats about 1,600. and then everybody else is all around the track that's not fenced off from the field. That's part of what we rent, is a little gate to surround around the field. So, you know, that adds another little picture for you. So.
Yeah, one of the things to people that have been part of these events and part of the community, some of our population also that have mobility issues, they're not able to access fishbowl at Roy Anderson. And so getting into a modern, you know, facility with all these benefits to be able to get our entire community there would be really helpful.
So I just have a few items that I think would be pertinent. Patrick has some numbers. Can you talk a little bit about the contract and the cost of renting Mount Tahoma? And then, Patrick, will you follow up with the cost of what we rent currently with porta potties and things of that nature? That would be great.
I don't know the cost of Mount Tahoma. Do you have that one?
$1,500 for Mount Tahoma.
Thank you.
Did you say 15?
1,500.
We're a little bit more to run it at Roy Anderson. I just want to make sure I heard that correctly. We're like $6,500. We got to rent porta potties. We bring in extra construction lights. We have the fencing we have to rent. You know, I was looking, like, I didn't realize, I've been to the stadium looking for some other stuff with construction, but I didn't realize they had the fence already around it. Did a little research today. I was really impressed with that facility and really excited about it. But it costs us a little bit more than $1,500 to run that event at Roy Anderson. So I'm sorry, did that?
Yeah, Mount Tahoma is
Yeah.
1,500 and 6,500.
Yeah, so we're saving money by doing it at Mount Tahoma.
6,500, yeah, at Roy Anderson, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. And I think if I can just add one more thing, Creston, too, is we've been talking about safety and security. I think partly it's the management of the space as well. We literally had, I think, every district leadership person there for Fishbowl, and it was still between middle schoolers coming on the field, and just, it was a lot to manage, just even in that space with the amount of capacity that we had. So we're looking at an event that, just by its very nature and the way it's built, but also the ability to have it staffed, will allow us to manage things much differently. Creston?
So, Patrick, I had asked, we were going to ballpark how many participants we thought attended. Do we have any numbers at all?
I don't know that I have the numbers. I know that it was, I talked to somebody.
Well, right, but they were the home team, so.
Yeah, so I can speak a little bit to that. But part of the issue that we have in terms of the capacity is that we have an associated student body agreement between the two schools that we honor each other's ASB cards. And so we're not actually taking those tickets. And so,
There you go.
so, I'm down. So, based on the sold tickets, and then based on, you know, what we think was probably there from students, we were probably right around 5,000. Right around 5,000 people.
So after last November, I went down and measured everything and figured out what our capacities were. So just the home bleachers alone are 891 seats. There's 17 standing for kind of band, and there's 10 ADA and 10 companion seating. Surprisingly, we were a little bit surprised on the away bleachers that, although they don't look that bad, there's about 560 seats there. Then there's 3 smaller bleachers that we bring in from various, baseball, things like that. And each of those were about 45 seats per, so about another 135. So that's where we get that 1,600. But if they got 5,000 people, you have 1,600 seats, and you know that, those are jam-packed, but you have people kind of everywhere. I'm sure you guys have all been to one of those games. It's literally people kind of everywhere, and I know the coaches and everybody, they're trying to coach the game, they're trying to figure out how to control the crowds all at the same time, and it's a little bit of chaos when you're there with that. Where when I heard today that holds 5,000 seats, we did some checking, and there's 5,000 seats alone in that stadium that you could just sit down and not have to have people all around the facility hanging out.
Yeah, my kids, when my kids were in high school, they graduated, my last one graduated 12 years ago, and the fishbowl, even back then, was quite chaotic. And I think the atmosphere is what everyone goes for. It's really a cool event. But we had over twice the number of seats running around the field, and in the areas, 3,400 people was insane. And at least on the side where the baseball field is, when I came to the game before it started, there was no one checking IDs at that checkpoint. And like, I just walked right in, and no one asked me who I was, didn't ask me to show any ID. I just walked right in. So I don't know if maybe there's more than we thought were there, because they just walked. That's that side of the field. I'm not saying on the other side, but there wasn't much security on that side. You made a comment, there's a comment on here about holding fishbowl in Mount Homer means we will not need to limit ticket sales. And then there was another thing, we anticipate costs will be similar, it's actually less, but you say, because we always have to pay staff and security. That statement surprised me a little bit, because we're still gonna have to have security at Mount Homer, right? You're not gonna not have security. So
That's correct.
So is there gonna be an event cost for hiring our security and staff to?
There will be some, yeah.
Okay.
But also the event staff is staffed by them.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Is that rolled up under the 1,500, or is
It
that
does.
extra?
It does.
Okay. I got lots of questions, but I'm gonna let everyone else go. Thanks.
Oh, go ahead.
I would say just jump in. Go ahead.
I have a question that, just for clarification, maybe it's a question for Mr. Filkins. Can you just explain who makes, this is going back to kind of the beginning, who makes decisions regarding league realignment? Just to address that piece. Is that something that's mandated? Because I actually know, but if you could explain how that works, that'd be helpful.
As you know, yeah, it's a collaborative process. I've been through many of these. I think in my time at Peninsula, I think this is probably about the 9th league that I've been in. The classification process that we go through with WIA, which is now every 4 years, you're working within your district. And so the Peninsula School District is part of a larger community, the West Central District, okay, or District 3. It is a large group, and so what we have to do is we have to work with the other members within West Central District to come up with league alignments. We try to keep as much consistency as possible, and it's just truly a collaborative process where people go in and basically express what their intentions are, what their most important things are, and so this is a process that we went into, and I can tell you that our new league, which is going to be called the Puget Sound League, and there's 2 divisions. There's the Narrows Division, and then there's the Nisqually Division. Every school that went into it, every school district that's a part of it, had to make some level of concessions. And so it is a lot of work, fortunately for us, West Central District is by Western Washington a pretty large district, but we don't have quite some of the road miles that we have in Eastern Washington. So we actually were able to reduce the overall travel for both of our high schools as a result of being in the Puget Sound League. And then also the 2-division format gives us a really good opportunity to have expanded non-league opportunities, divisional games, and then cross-divisional. So, so it's a really exciting process, and I think it'll be great for our kids to experience some of the great facilities that are in this league, and then some of the awesome schools out there.
So I know that both schools have been doing a lot of work. And maybe our student reps can chime in if they were involved with the sportsmanship summits and a lot of this stuff. And I remember there was a little bit of trepidation with Fish Basket this year and how things were going to go. And from what I understand, it went great. There was a lot of communication ahead of time, healthy sportsmanship. There was signage. There was a lot of, well articulated behavior and fan, student, player expectations. And so I think that was wonderful to see. So I'm wondering, in the sportsmanship summits and in a lot of this stuff, has this been discussed with our students? And if a venue change, if it was solely driven by numbers, or what were other considerations? Because I know these are, there's numbers and costs, but some of the, the intangibles that you can't quantify. I mean, the standing area in Fishbowl are where the parents and the younger kids and everybody are mixing. And so that hard line separation, to me, kind of is, on one hand, it's nice from a crowd control point of view, but on the other hand, it is that opportunity for students to mix and mingle is kind of what makes Fishbowl special in many ways.
Yeah.
Well, I think if you look at this, they still have access to move around this way.
Okay.
I think by looking at the pictures, it just wouldn't be inside the access to the field of play.
Okay.
But Jennifer, was your question, how are the students feeling about that? Was that where you're going?
Well, yeah. I mean,
want to make sure I address your question.
Yeah. I guess just kind of, there's been a lot of work being done around this kind of thing. And then to me, this seems like a piece of that would be part of the conversation. And I'm just wondering if students, if they were included in some of these decisions, if this was talked about with the sportsmanship groups, things like that.
I don't know that we had an opportunity before the decision needed to be made to have those kinds of conversations, but I do know the conversations that we've had leading up to and post Fish Basket. Alec did a lot of work with our ASB president as well. There were a lot of videos that they created together that were super supportive of each other, and just really a relationship this year, I feel, built between our two student bodies especially. And I think that, honestly, when I think about the legacy that they have left and are going to leave, and the imprint that they're going to leave on their teams next, I think they've set the standard for what it's going to look like in the fall. In terms of the sportsmanship piece of it, so they've worked super hard, and there are some intangibles. I mean, I think what we can't minimize is the psychological and the emotional impact of some of this, right? So, I think part of making really hard decisions is acknowledging that it's sometimes hard to get all the things you want at the same time, and while we would love. And we would absolutely support the board pushing for a bond at some point that would build us a facility that would allow us to have the safety and the security and the camaraderie in our own backyard here. We have to take into consideration what's best for everyone at this point and where we are right now. And I have a lot of hope that as we move through and in through the summer and into next year, that we're going to find lots of opportunities to build this up in a way that's super healthy and encouraging based on the work that we've done this year. But I do want to acknowledge that it's hard, that some of that's a hard change right now. Yeah.
I was thinking the reason you wanted to move over there was to get those 3,400 people off the track. And I know that makes the experience, like Jennifer says, but Mike said, well, you have all that space around that track. I would think that we don't want them all around that track. We want them in the bleachers, but maybe there could be a student section, like a mosh pit or something, like on one end where the students get together.
Well, the concessions are separate. I mean, they're they're separate locker rooms, separate concessions, separate areas for both sides of the field. Which is a pretty traditional model now. I mean, even if Peninsula School District and our CFO, with all of the extra money that's coming in that we talked about earlier, if all of that money were dedicated to building a new stadium, we would likely build something like Mount Tahoma, because that's what is built now, right? And so, yes, this crossing together and having this togetherness is wonderful, but it's also super complicated. It's super complicated when there's an emergency. It's super complicated when you need to get someone somewhere really fast. And we have to kind of look at that whole big picture and think about what does our community wellness look like? What does it look like to take care of our community, so that we can have yes and.
You mentioned concessions, so I wanted to touch on that because
Yeah.
that's a concern that we hear from a lot. So I know that this is a big moneymaker for our ASBs. So do we know how much money those clubs usually bring in from this? And do we have access to the concession booths for our own students to sell that afternoon?
Good question.
I think we just need to take notes on some of the questions because we don't have all the answers yet. And we don't generate a lot of food concessions money at Fishbowl because we have the food trucks and that, they pay a small fee to be on campus, a very small fee to be on campus, but a lot of that's going just so we can handle the capacity there. So,
And we split the gate.
yeah.
I'm confirming we split the gate. But my understanding is that concessions will not be ours, that concessions will be run by their facility staff. However, we do have the opportunity, if you look at the slide that's behind me, you can see at 2 end zones there's space. And we're working on to see how many booths we can have so that we can have gear, and there can be a Peninsula side, a Gig Harbor side, and there can be different boosters kinds of things there as well to draw in and offset some of those things.
I think I would just want to go back to Jennifer's question also is, students involved in this, like this discussion, maybe not that much because of the timing of it and all of the meetings the logistics of all the meetings we were going through, but where I see them being really involved is what does it look like on that day and how do we get router buses and maybe we have something at school beforehand and have pancake breakfast or, I see leaning on our students to say, hey, if you're worried about this, we want to hear that. How do we make it special? How do we connect? How do we make sure we're going over there together? And something needed to be different. This is going to be different. It doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. It could be, it could be wonderful. And we could also say, well, maybe that was a great try. Let's try something different afterwards. It'll be a learning thing for sure for all of us.
Yeah.
So.
I'd like to hear the reaction from the players. I think those are probably the ones who at least knew about this first. Have you had a discussion with your teams and what that sounded like?
Can I just chime in on the concessions piece? I did speak with James Neal at Tacoma Public Schools last week, and at least our initial discussion is the concessions are based on right of first refusal, and so Mount Tahoma as the host oftentimes will choose to handle the concessions on the home side, and oftentimes they'll turn over the visitor side, but that's still to be negotiated or determined. It kind of depends upon what they would like to do as the host.
Thank you, Dan.
I was going to say, I grew up in Texas too, Matt, and our football stadium was at least as big, if not bigger, than Mount Tahoma.
Oh, yeah.
And when we traveled to Bryan or Kilgore or Killeen or wherever it might be, and I know you know where all those places are, we had a bus convoy, like hundreds of students got on those big yellow buses and drove for 2 or 3 hours when we were in state playoffs and stuff like that. But there would be a cost, which I think that would add and make that a really neat event with the students. It would be a much shorter drive than that 3-hour drive I used to sit. But there would be a cost associated with that we could factor in. But I guess, one thing is we have high school students here that have been part of Fishbowl for the last 3 or 4 years or longer. And I'm just curious, what are your thoughts? Would you still be able to see your friends?
Can we hear about the players' reaction first?
Sure. Sorry.
Yeah, so I met with the players just to let them know what our thoughts were, or direction was. Our guys just want to play. I think once the game starts, it's a game, no matter where we're playing at. It's sort of our aspect on it. To us, it's all a road game. We're traveling wherever we play, so they don't really care. They just wanted to make sure this game continued. That was their big push whenever we talked to them. when the leagues were coming out and divisions were being talked about. I know with our guys, it's really like, are we really not going to play fishbowl? So I think just playing it, they don't care where it's at. That's where we're sort of at with that.
You guys?
Ross, is it kind of the same reaction from this side?
Yeah, I just think, being able to have the game. I mean, in an ideal world, again, we would have a facility like this, within our district. That's just not where we're at right now. And so being able to preserve this tradition, for our community, I think is really important.
Yeah, one thing I just had a quick question about, and I could have misinterpreted it, but you said something about like completely separating the two home and visitor sides completely. And I understand that's to like for safety reasons and like to keep them apart or whatever. But I think some of the best memories are mixing with the Gig Harbor kids as well, because I have some great friends at Gig Harbor that I would every fishbowl I go to see and hang out with for a little bit, talk to. And I also feel like if you're just separating them into two different sides, it kind of separates you more because you are like physically separated from them. It's like the rivalry is, we want to keep it like friendly and stuff. And having that physical separation where you're distanced from them, I think heightens that rivalry in a more negative way, because you can't really like relate to the other people. You can't see them. You don't know who they are. So I think that's one of my worries with that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of wisdom in that, and I think that that's incumbent on us then to kind of figure out what can we do, because there's no reason why we couldn't create some really cool, fun things that we do. Mr. Benoit talked about, gathering together beforehand. Maybe we do that all together. Maybe there's some aspects where we build some community ahead of time, and even there, who's to say what we can do? You know how like during halftime the cheer squad goes to one side and then they go to the other. Have you guys ever seen that, where they go and they deliver cookies to the other cheer? I don't know why it's always the cheer team that does it, but something along those lines that would increase that community feel. And I think as we look at it, if we can look towards the solutions of how we can mitigate some of that using our students together, I think we can figure some things out. But I think it's a genuine concern, or I feel that.
Yeah, I would just thank you for sharing that piece. I would just add too that you've identified something you're worried about. We can sit at the table and say, okay, what are solutions to that? And brainstorm together. We can also take a group of students from both schools over to that stadium, and say, hey guys, what do you think? How do we make this work for our school and for our community? Because we want you to have voice in it. Okay.
Take our football captains over. Yeah. Thank you.
It's kind of more of a comment than as a question, but I actually, from hearing all of the differences between Roy Anderson and Mount Tahoma, and I kind of heard a little bit about this somewhere a couple days ago, and I saw a lot of negative feedback on it. But I think that I actually think that this might be a pretty good idea to have, especially because there's more space. Because I know that when I went to Fishbowl, I think I went there once for when I was in pep band, and it was absolutely crowded, and that was the year we got rained on.
I remember that year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was just so crowded that you could barely even move. Yeah. But like we were like packed sardines. But I think that if moving Fishbowl to Mount Tahoma is actually a pretty good idea, because there's so many more things that benefit from that, from safety to players and attendees, from parking to seating, and even in the playing field. And also it's a lot cheaper too, so I mean that works too. But yeah, I think it's a really good idea, even though it is different, but people can adjust to change, and especially when it has more better benefits than where something is usually held at.
Thank you. Appreciate that. You're wise.
Could I ask you both to talk about, like, if that wasn't an option and you stayed at Roy Anderson, what would limiting access look and sound like for both of you?
Well,
Because that was the other option on the table.
That was the other option on
Yeah.
the table. And it would be, because going back, we talked about stands, right? So when Patrick laid out the numbers for the stands, 3 of those stands broke on the visiting side this year. So those went away. Then we were before the game even started, those got moved away because we're like, this is a safety hazard. We've got to move this off. So I think it would be both limiting capacity. We would definitely probably have to limit, like, say, our middle schools and things like that, limit it to student body only, to a certain number, and then beyond that, we'd have to probably go lottery. Because we'd have to clear off that track. It's just, it's a lot with the kids pressing in, and, they're not lying when they say, like, literally the fans are right there and the coaches are right there. So, so it would have meant limiting a lot of numbers, and again, we felt like it was more important to the community to attend the event than it was to limit the numbers to whatever our 1,600 versus 5,000. Because honestly, 1,500 students, who else is going to be there? If you just look at that, if you just had our own student bodies, now mind you, not everybody shows up, but a lot do. You're taking away alumni, there are just so many things that would, I think, in the long run, be hard for us to have to do.
Yeah, the biggest thing would be what she just said, determining how to limit and, who to give access to, but also really being thoughtful about our access points and where people park everywhere. If there's a little teeny bit of space, there's cars everywhere. And so we have to make sure that we can get first responders through that need to come through and have access points for important things. That would be the only other thing I would add to that. The other thing, one more thing I was just thinking about is there might be people that never come to Fishbowl because they're overwhelmed, because it's just a sensory overload for them. Mm-hmm. And they're there and it's too crowded, it's too, and this may actually, more people might come from our community because there's a little elbow room.
Yeah, I guess I'm having a hard time squaring stuff that needs to be fixed irrespective of Fishbowl, and then it only being addressed because of Fishbowl. For example, can somebody speak a little bit more to the first responder access to the field? Because my understanding after the investigation was that the crowd was not the reason that they didn't attend to the student. It was a medical decision to not drive the car out there. And then secondly, we have had trouble with parking in fire lanes regardless of Fishbowl. So, and then things like limiting access and tickets. Well, venues have capacities that we can calculate, right? We can calculate our stand, and we would have that at Fish Basket. We would have that at other things. So I think the architect in me who does life safety calculations of what our maximum capacities should be and where you should park and all of this kind of stuff is wondering if we're not going to address it for this should be addressed for every single event that's held at Roy Anderson.
100%.
And I guess I was just hoping to maybe hear a little more specifics around what is it the actual maximum capacity considering standing and seating, plans for parking. Fishbowl are not being held there, these kind of things as well, ADA access, emergency vehicle access, player access paths, like these should be addressed regardless.
Well, they absolutely should be addressed, but I would say we do not have the numbers at a regular game like we do at Fishbowl. I mean,
it's just so much more profound,
Oh.
just because of the crowd, but I
Right,
understand
but
what
we
you're
should
saying.
have what our maximum
Yeah.
occupancy of Roy Anderson Field is,
Right.
right? That's knowable. And be tracking that, knowing that, right? I guess that's what's hard for me to understand is, I mean, it can be, I understand it's complex and we haven't done it, but could we?
So Jennifer, can I ask what you would be asking then? So I'm kind of looking at Patrick. So if Patrick had a number, let's say 2,000, let's just make up a number.
Sure.
And we had a fishbowl, then if they went over 2,000, you would turn people away. Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're asking?
And that would be limiting ticket sales.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally, yes.
I'm sorry, the delta between 5,000 and 1,500 is very big.
Yeah.
But is 1,500 really the number? Or is there a different number if we are, considering standing areas, considering all these other things and access paths and all that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm just processing in my head. I'm thinking what that looks like.
Yeah.
I can talk a little bit
Thank
about
you.
that.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Ross.
That is part of the uniqueness of Roy Anderson, is that we do get a lot of people just standing and milling about. And so having a seating capacity that might be 1,600 is not necessarily a cap in Roy Anderson, but as what was already mentioned, in my 30 years, I've never seen us even close to a fishbowl type capacity, even for big playoff games. Now, on a weekly, we do work to make sure that we're, whoever we're hosting, if it's a playoff event or even a non-league game or league game, we're sharing syllabus, we're sharing emergency information. Who are your supervisors? Here's the itinerary, here's the emergency plan. We have emergency scripts if we have a power outage. We've seen that before, right? And so that's normal. And I honestly, both as a coach and athletic director, and seeing this for 30 years, I feel pretty comfortable for a non-fishbowl event. Roy Anderson, when we get to a fishbowl situation, it's just a completely different type of endeavor to try to keep things as safe in a supervisory capacity. We have a responsibility there, right? And so it does make it really challenging. And so I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Well, yeah, I guess I'm trying to get the sense that I guess what I was looking for is that if it's the numbers that are overwhelming, do we have a better handle on those numbers? Or is it the entire, everything else that goes around the event that makes it?
I would say yes and. Because part of it is if you're having people on the tracks, you have to move people out of the tracks. When we had an emergency situation over on the food court side and we had an ambulance on that side, we were trying to hold off crowds while we were trying to maintain our students, and then the player got hurt on the field, and then we're trying to get access from a different point to get so it's yes and, right? You're having to, but you shouldn't have anybody standing on the track like that. Like there's a reason why we put, things around and things and stuff like that. So I think, I just think if you don't have people on the track, you push it back, everything gets pushed back further, and then it just gets tighter. So I think it's probably yes and, but I hear your question, which is, what's the difference between 1,500 and 5,000? I want the real number of what that difference is, because that's what we're talking about in terms of limiting ticket sales. That's the number.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I hear that, yeah.
But I think we were trying to give a simple comparison, so I talked to Patrick about this today and said, how can we compare it so that you just know what the seating capacity is, so you're kind of comparing apples to apples. We have 1,600 seats, there's 5,000 seats. It's a good question. We didn't go that deep into our, analysis.
Yeah.
What's the parking capacity at Roy Anderson? That's
what's
a
that?
parking capacity at Roy
Parking
Anderson.
capacity at Roy Anderson.
Oh, shoot.
In the actual
parking
Well,
lot.
I can
Yeah.
tell you for students, we have about 200 parking spots.
200.
Just slightly over
200
200. And then
total.
we have a staff lot too. Yeah, so
500 along the road.
Right, so there is a little bit of Purdy as well. People park there, they
Yeah,
park
that's
all
true.
along the road up to Purdy, and then I've been there when it's
well, we changed streets here, but
Yeah,
you get the
no, I
idea,
get it.
where it's
Mhm.
like all the way up to the freeway, basically from there. So it's like, we have parking capacity, but it's like cars are parked everywhere.
Yeah.
Kind of answer one of the questions. So, like Mike said, we did the comparison seating versus seating, but there's additional capacity within the stadium around it, and then with the game, obviously, there's people on there. Different events, you could put way more people on there if there was, if you had seats on the field or different things. So it's kind of a hard number to play with. That's why when I did this back in November, I was going to try to figure that out, and it was like, there's so many variables, and I was like, I already spent a lot of time measuring everything, so I paused on that. But you can also see over here, you'd have the same thing, 5,000 seats. You're still gonna have a lot of capacity for standing room only if you want it. But I think that's where some of the problems are coming in, is all the standing room only. The seats are packed, they're jumping up and down on them, and then there's people everywhere, where now you can get more people up in the stands, still have that circulation around it.
And if you've ever been to the state track and field event, awesome, by the way, there's a lot of standing that's happening all the way around that field, so. And it's put us behind a fence.
And as I recall, I think my first graduation here was at
Yes,
Mount
it
Tahoma,
was.
wasn't it?
It was moved there.
We were
And
on
last
that
week-
field, yeah.
I will say too, and I gotta say, Ross, I haven't been to the last couple of meetings, but every year he has a meeting, and it is, he has got a checklist, and he goes down that thing and knocks it out, and I think he knows every bleacher in our district. He's like, did you get that one? Did you get this one? You get him over there. So he knows, and I'm really always surprised at which ones. I'm like, oh, do you remember that one? So we bring over a lot more, whether it's from Gig Harbor. I think we brought those over this year, which was a bit of a challenge too, trying to get those over in the back. We bring from the baseball field. We brought some from Peninsula as well too, some smaller ones. But I just, want to make sure everybody knows there's a lot of effort that goes into this, and I've worked with Ross on it. And he really tries to make sure every year that each of these pieces, from safety, security, seating, everything's handled. And I know it's a little overwhelming for him to handle that each year. I know it's his job, he takes it on well, but there's so many pieces go into that game, just the fishbowl alone. And I don't think, even with a playoff game, I don't think we've ever had a meeting about any of the logistics of it. It's only that game, and it is every year we have that meeting.
And just to clarify, each AD, whether it's home game, the AD is in charge of that facility.
Yeah.
So they're in charge of making sure that all its stuff's brought over. So this year, we're home game, so, yeah.
Thanks. I have a comment and a question. So you guys have heard me say this many times, but I always think it's important to mention when we talk about fishbowl. I've lived in town for more than 30 years, and my husband actually played his brother in the first fishbowl game, because it was at the time that they built Gig Harbor High School, and so they played each other. It was in the paper and all that. Because of that, I'm well aware of the storied history and the tradition of this game, and have been to many, many over the years. And as the coaches mentioned, it has not been without changes. It's moved from the last game of the season to the first game of the season to, a few different locations along the way. I think I was in the line at the Stadium Bowl that night for hours. But so I actually love, and I never thought about this until the coaches are the ones who said it tonight, the perspective of a potential location change being, to elevate the game, the opportunity to elevate the game to a new level and a new excitement and certainly a better, more spacious facility, instead of trying to dismantle it. I think those are two very different things, and it is important to maybe focus on some opportunities there, which reminds me of when we did, the question is, I'm wondering, I know that we hire police and security, extra, all of that for the game, and that can sometimes be challenging. And I know that firsthand because I was in charge of hiring them for the graduation parade that we did during COVID, and it was very difficult. Do you think is it easier to obtain security personnel in Tacoma than it might be for persons to come out here? I don't know if that's true or not. It's a genuine wondering.
Chris Hagel.
Yes. So I'm not going to say too much, but between the last meeting when I was here and we talked a little bit about bringing the MAC back together, and I think, Chuck, you remember what the MAC is, all of the local agencies. We had a meeting last week. We actually are in the very early stages of planning for the first big multi-agency drill to take place at the Fishbowl at Mount Tahoma High School. So we will be working with Pierce County Emergency Management. Gig Harbor PD is already committed. We will likely have Tacoma PD there because it is in Tacoma. We're working on Pierce County Sheriff. Gig Harbor Fire will take place. So we have a lot of things going already planning that, and so we should be well secured for police, fire, emergency management, and everybody else being on site at the Fishbowl. So.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate that. Yep. Thank you, Chris. And also, just to state the obvious, because I also think it's important, I think I can speak for every one of us up here that if we could snap our fingers overnight and have a facility newer than Mount Tahoma right here where our current field is, we would do it. So that is not, you know, it's not that we don't understand what would be the most desirable situation, right? If we could have an incredible new facility, and and we will one day, but that cannot happen before the next season. So, and it also just, last comment is that I can't help but be reminded of when we had to do graduation, or we chose to do it. We had to do it outside, and we really wanted to do that at Roy Anderson Field for obvious reasons, because it was sentimental and the seniors wanted it, and I thought it was the perfect solution. And what we encountered was just a nightmare of logistics, because there's just not enough parking, and this was for a thing that was, you know, every 6 feet, and only a couple, each person could only have 2 people, and it just quickly became so difficult that we, for reasons not worth going into, ended up hosting it at Mount Tahoma. But I will say, and people were kind of skeptical about that, that the day of that event, many people said that was the best graduation they'd ever been to. And it was so far different than anything we'd ever done. We'd always been in the Tacoma Dome or GILU or wherever else. And it just was another great example of something that was just an unexpected surprise. And in fact, it elevated to, we also were, I will be honest, we lucked out. It was sunny and it was lovely.
It was really
and I think
lovely.
the Tacoma schools had rain every single day that week. So that was lucky. But anyway, the parking, so I did go to a big event. The parking was incredible there, and just well managed. And so that was in the, you know, the bathrooms, all of it. It was a really top-notch place to have an event. So it is just, I'm sharing my own experiences, and you guys will remember some of those, so.
Well, I will ditto or echo it's a little bit of a disappointment that we can't host it ourselves. And I think this community has grown such that we need that field. So we have a long-range facilities planning committee starting up. We really do need to look at being able to do that. It's a shame to me that we have to move it to a place that can accommodate our own students. And I think we could probably go around and talk all night about this, but this game is now scheduled for, I believe it's the first Saturday after school starts.
Yep.
So, in my opinion, the planning, if we go forward with this, has to start now. So I think the board would request that students are engaged immediately on the planning, because they don't have time to do it next year. So all of that has to happen this year. So however you convene advisory group of students, and whoever you think is reasonable to participate in that. I think we need to get transportation squared away and all of the other fun stuff that goes with it. That, you know, I think Jennifer made a point that the whole point of this game really is the community aspect of it. It's not even an in-league game anymore. So that is, I think, our biggest concern is that we honor that tradition. So.
So I just want to thank this team. You guys have spent a lot of time together talking and trying to solve a really complex problem that just didn't happen this last year. It's been happening for a while. When we think of facilities, I appreciate this board coming forward and a long-range facilities plan, because it's not just this site. It's also, we are in a league that has a pretty robust, so let's just use football. There is contact football at the middle school across the bridge. We have our students that are not having opportunities here, both because of facilities and planning for that. So I'm just putting that forward that, you know, middle school, we could have football as well, but we have to have places and spaces that are safe, and we have to have that commitment to kind of move forward. So as we move into this new league, as both of the coaches know, the facilities will look different, but also the opportunities for students will look different as well. And so one of the last opportunities I got to do as a middle school director in Tacoma was we reintroduced football into Tacoma. So they've had it for at least, 11 years? I don't know, 12 years, something like that. And so the students that they will be playing, and that I don't know, I mean, both of you would know more in the middle school, in the feeders, the leagues that you're coming into. Can you just speak to that? How many have middle school programs that?
I know all Tacoma does.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Central Kitsap plays with Curtis and the Peninsula teams around us. I'm not sure about Olympia.
Pretty much everybody.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I know the 3A's out. I mean, they all have it.
Right. For a while there, Tacoma went away from it. So I went to Hunt Junior High in Tacoma, and now Silas, and so I was able to benefit from having a really robust middle school athletics at that time. And then after I graduated, they went away. And when you talk to people from Tacoma during that time period, they talked about the impact of that. We saw the same thing locally here with South Kitsap. They went through a very similar situation. We've never had it. And so there's a huge growth potential there for our kids, but it does necessitate some investment in our facilities, particularly at the middle school level.
Yeah, it does, and thank you for that. And we know that we want the best for our students, and we know that we want a level playing field in this league. And so those are the opportunities that we can speak about the future. So thank you, board, for being forward-thinking and thinking about our students first. So thank you for that.
Do we have any other comments or questions from students before we wrap this up? No? Okay. Well, I would say also first and foremost, it's really wonderful to see you all up here together and collaborating through a really difficult situation. So I think you're setting a fantastic example for our students, for our community, and we know it's not easy work. So thanks for coming up with some really workable solutions.
Thank you. We sure appreciate your support.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, we're not done. One more. So Chris Hagel has a short announcement about an opportunity grant. Thank you, Chris.
Sure.
Send us home.
So this one's fun. So we applied back in, because of our work that we've been doing with AI over the last year and a half, we applied for an opportunity to be one of 4 districts in the nation to take part in concert with the Consortium for School Networks, the Council of Great City Schools, and Amazon Web Services to build out a maturity model to help school districts across the country roll out AI across their district. And so we were awarded on Friday or Sunday night, or we were announced that we would be one of the 4 districts chosen. So they will be bringing in workshop trainers to help work with us, to go through and work with our cabinet to talk about all of the steps that are needed for a school district to successfully roll out AI across their entire organization. We will be then helping them build what they're calling a maturity model, which is essentially a rubric. They came out with a checklist a few months ago that I was a part of helping develop, and it's 93 things. And so trying to do 93 things as a school district is really, really impossible. They do. They need to lean that down a little bit. So we're excited to do that work. We will have people here probably 3rd or 4th week of March to work with our cabinet, but they will be coming in, and we will then be expected to help do presentations and speak throughout the country and speak at conferences and things about the work that we're doing here with AI and that model. So, yeah.
Can you repeat who the partners were again, Chris?
The Consortium of School Networks, which is the professional organization for CTOs across the country, the Council of Great City Schools, and then Amazon Web Services is actually the funding partner for that. So they're paying the bill to bring these people in. So, yep. Yeah.
All right, you're done. You don't have anything to add. Okay, then we'll roll on to the last item of the evening is board discussion and comments. So, what's that?
Everyone went on vacation.
Everyone went on vacation. I know. And does anyone have comments or anyone?
I just have a quick one.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's start with Lori.
Just that I'm really excited for all the spring activities coming up. I love spring sports. I like all the seasons, but spring's fun because everything's out. You know, you could be near a baseball game, a soccer game, track, all that all at the same time, tennis, whatever. But I was going to tell the board, if you have not been to the Henderson Bay Pancake Breakfast, you should make an attempt to go on the 9th of March, because I went last year and it was an incredible event. And I think my son was home from college, and I told him I was taking him out to breakfast, and then I headed up toward Henderson Bay, and he was like, "Where is this place we're going?" I said, "It's a new place. You've not been." So it's a great event for a good cause, and so thanks for telling us about it.
Well, because it was break, I didn't really do much. I would just say that, our strategic plan, we tossed around how we wanted to be viewed, and we sort of settled on we wanted to be viewed as the best school district in the state. But I'd argue we're on the right track to be one of the best school districts in the country. And so with people like Chris Haywood there, we're definitely on the right track. So, and our green schools and doing some really cool stuff here. So.
Well, to piggyback on that, one of the great things that I think we are doing an exceptional job of is offering opportunities for our parents to learn from our educators. And just like between this week and next week, we have so many events that we've invited our parents in to come see. I don't know, I want to go to every single one of them, but I'm just going to mention a couple just so people know. And I don't know how to consolidate and put all these in one spot because they get advertised, but anyway. So tomorrow, the Special Education Parent Education Series is going to be having you don't have to have a child in special education to come, but a really fantastic discussion on executive functioning in children, which is, as parents know, it's a big deal, but understanding a little bit more of the science and strategies and things like that. And then right after that, via Zoom, is going to be a discussion on dual credit options in high schools, which again is really important when you're planning for college and even in middle school. So AP classes versus college in the high school versus running start, all of these factors, and it's complex calculus. So I really appreciate that they're extending that to anybody. And then next Tuesday is their Galaxy Theater. We're partnering with Galaxy Theater to screen the movie Liked. Have you seen this, Chris?
No, but I'm answering questions about
Oh, good. Chris will be there about social media and the impact on our children, and how much what we know and the vast amount that we don't know. And then that's going to be screened in some of our schools. And so I think as a parent, we can't know enough about this topic. And then following up on next Thursday, Chris will be at it again with Brent, our safety security officer at Peninsula, doing I would imagine similar presentation that I got to see last year on drug, alcohol, vaping awareness, and online, safety, security, cyberbullying, all these things. And all of these are geared towards parents, guardians, community members to understand what's happening in our schools, how to be able to support our kids and support our students. And it's a tremendous amount of work and effort after hours, and our schools are doing it. And so I'm just really grateful to our educators for taking initiative to do this and to do it again and again and again so that we can all be partners in helping our students thrive. That's it.
Well.
Did you just meow at me?
No, I just said wow.
Oh.
Some good points. No, yeah, it's getting late. What I wanted to do is just mention a couple things. And the board is very concerned about harassment, intimidation, and bullying issues. We spent some time today reviewing an issue and the documents that we have. So I just want to put that out there. I know there's people watching that want to know what we're doing, and we are actively looking at those things. And one of the things that also concerns me is the drug issues that we have Recently, we had a death that appears to be an overdose issue. And so those things are very concerning to me. We do so much in this district, and we're working with Crossroads to really get some counseling for our kids. We are above many school districts out there, and it's more than the optics of looking like the best school district out there. We are the best school district because we are addressing these things and we are aware of them. We're trying to bring home everything we can for our kids here. I want to plant a seed. A couple of them. One is when we get to the funding. If the state is not going to adequately fund school districts, then maybe we should jump on board with something like McClary and get our lawyers to sue them again, because they are not adequately funding the schools. If that's the only way to get the state to do it, then we should be talking at WASDA, at WASA, or whatever, to get others on board and to start putting some pressure on the state to say, if you're not going to do it, we will make you do it. Because it is the paramount duty of the state to fund education. And they're slipping away, and we're letting them do it. And we just cannot sit aside and let them do that. The other seed is with our facilities. The presentation tonight on Roy Anderson highlights the needs that we have. We've done a lot, and we've shown that we can do so much and do it great because we have Patrick sitting out there, and we have Ashley, and we have all the staff that can really make something happen. In the near future, we do need to make something happen with our facilities to finish up the missing components. We've done a great job with elementary schools and middle schools, and now we need to do something for our high schools. They need to have facilities. And so bringing together the long-range facility planning group is awesome. And that's a start to bringing about improvements in those facilities that are in dire need. So I went to Peninsula High School. It was worn out when I went there and graduated in '76. But it's limped along this long, and it's got to be one of our paramount duties to make sure that these kids have the facilities and things. And I will shut up because it has been a long night.
I'll keep my comments very short. I just want to touch on last night's city council meeting. It was actually the first city council meeting that I have attended. And I went specifically because they were going to be signing the authorizing the mayor to sign an MOU with the Sister Cities Council, which is something that we have a particular interest in. But also they had a presentation from the Pierce County Opioid Task Force. So to piggyback onto what Chuck was talking about, they've only partnered with Tacoma Public Schools. So I have a bunch of information to pass to you about how we can partner with them on that, because their focus is going to be on youth and prevention. So I think that's something that there's a place in all of our schools. So I would like to do that. The other very exciting piece of news that they got during the presentation was from the Pierce County Transit Authority. They are adding a couple of routes to Gig Harbor, which are going to be under they're calling it a runner service. So instead of buses, it's going to be minivans, and it's like an Uber service, door to door. They're going to be they'll pick you up at your house and take you to either TCC or the hospital. So it's not 24 hours, but I think this is something that could really benefit our students. It's not an Uber fare, it's a bus fare, so it's very inexpensive and it's free for under 19. So I think that's starting in the spring. So as we're sending kids to school, to TCC for some of the day, I think that would be fantastic. And then lastly, they did approve the Sister Cities MOU, so that's just another piece in the puzzle for getting that partnership solidified. And I want to share with you that some of our staff members, our teachers from TK at Evergreen and Voyager, Zoomed with some preschool teachers in our sister city of Buda, Norway, and together they came up with a project that their students are going to do together. So our 4 and 5-year-olds are going to be working on, in the spring, because it's still frozen there and rainy here, working on learning about pollinators, because those teachers did research on our habitats and what's similar about us, and everybody has butterflies. They call them summer birds there. So the kids are going to make butterfly houses and focus on pollination and how they're doing butterflies and bumblebees. That bumblebees was the first one, because Norway doesn't actually have wasps or the bad kinds of bees, but they do have bumblebees. So anyway, I think that's going to be really cute. So we'll have our kids work together and make videos to share across, and we will have some visitors in April, it sounds like, from Buda, a delegation coming out to visit those programs. And I kind of floated the idea of, I know we invited you to come out to see our transitional TK and that Norwegian project, and I think it would be a good day for you to come when we have delegates from sister cities, because I know they want to meet with older students as well. So we'll keep you posted if that's something that can happen. And that is all for me. Thank you all for hanging around for a longish meeting. Our next meeting will be on Tuesday, March 5th at 6:00 p.m. here at Swiftwater. And with that, we are adjourned.